welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Glow.
And I'm Kyle.
And we're the fucking Morning Throners. No! How does opening my beer do that?
That was the best one yet.
And welcome back to your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We're the Morning Throners. It's Bran 2 time, baby. Been a while, I feel like, since we had Bran.
It's only 2?
Yep, Bran 2.
What was the last
I think
Bran?
I said Bran 3 last
The
time.
Waters. We had a lot of water action.
Yeah.
Fighting the Waters.
They're back. Don't worry.
They're back.
They're still here.
Good as ever.
Being douches.
They're being worse.
Only
this time.
big was the really douche one here. Little's kind of just not saying anything.
Yeah, they're both.
How old are
piece
they
of
compared to Bran? Are they a little bit older?
I think so.
Just both.
Shit. They gotta be. Right?
Douche
Yeah, I would think
Canusius?
so.
Seems like
like 12, 13
10 and 12 maybe?
Yeah.
10 and... Are they a year apart or 2 years apart?
9. That's they're the same because they're born 54 days apart. I remember them saying that. One is 9, so the other one's 9. Yeah, they're both pretty much exactly Bran.
Well, isn't
They're
Bran...
younger than I thought.
Bran's 8. But
Bran's about to be 9.
Yeah, he tells Lou he's almost 9.
They're still younger than I thought.
They're still dickheads for being
Yeah,
9.
they are definitely douchies.
Punt those kids.
So we get started.
Let's see what Kyle, what do you think about this chapter? I mean, I feel like I'm gonna like this chapter more than a lot of people because there's like a lot of the politics. It's kind of like the stuff that we normally get in like a Tyrion or Ned chapter in King's Landing, but in the North instead, and nobody really gives a fuck because it's like Northern Lords that we've never heard of before.
I think it's okay. It's not crazy politics. It's all really about one thing.
There's one thing. There's like a few reoccurring trends, but like it's just like basically Bran. And I think that might be part of the point. Is like Bran thinks this is boring, so George makes a chapter that's not super boring, but it's like tedious. Like you're just hearing the same shit over and over again. I think maybe that's the point. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I didn't really enjoy it all that much. There was like a couple glimpses of like almost like him getting to watch people riding horses around, jousting or whatever, practicing, and then it's like, yeah, you gotta go do this other bullshit. So you're right, it did fit with what you just said. Bran thinks it's boring, so it was written really boring, and like you're kind of following that path that he's on for the day for sure. But
you get all excited to see the fights, and then bleh.
I don't really get like I wasn't like super excited for what was going to happen here, but it was like. And beforehand, Nelson's like, yeah, I thought this was a bad one, but then I remembered a part, so I was like kind of like waiting for it, and I thought he said something about like
the part at the end where the dream. I was like, oh,
yeah,
like
where
big revelation kind of for Bran. But I think kind of part of the reason I like this chapter is the first book we learn about all like the Northern Lords, right? So we learn about like Great John and
quickly forget who they are when it comes back around.
Exactly, and now we're going a level deeper. We're not meeting all like the lords. We're meeting all like the brothers of the lords because all the lords aren't even here, and like the wives of the lords. So it's like we're just getting that layer deeper into the politics. And I know some of these people that like maybe even Glow realizes because I know he's read the last book a few times. Like some of these people become like crazily important later on in the books, and some of them probably like die in 3 chapters from now.
Spoiler.
But I think that's why I like it is because there's a little bit of both, and you don't know. The first time reader obviously doesn't know what they're getting, but me reading, I'm like, oh, this is the guy that does blah, 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 blah.
There's so many names. It gets so hard.
Yeah, some of the names are cool, though. Keeps them interesting. Horsebane, Crow's Food.
They're even nicknames. So, like, they have those names, and then they don't use them. So it's like...
And I don't even know who... Yeah, they bring up their real names. I'm like, I don't know who this is.
It makes you think there's 4 Umbers there.
Either, exactly, yeah.
All right, let's get started. So, Bran wakes up. He's laying in bed. He's pretty much awake before the sun has woken him up. I think that was the first line.
I don't know if this has to do with him having bad dreams.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's multiple times where he, like, I think like 2 times in this chapter, he says like he tried to fight sleep as he's going to sleep, but it doesn't work. And then here it starts off with him.
And he knows that the bullshit he's about to get into too.
Yeah, he knows he has a day full of bullshit. Sleep. And he does talk, there's like noises outside, right? Like everybody's doing the stuff he wants to do.
Yeah,
and
fun in the yard.
We find out that the North is, or I guess what's left of the North, who's still around, is coming to Winterfell to talk about the harvest. Which
real life is continuing while the war is going on, pretty much.
Yeah,
they got to prep for winter, which is going to be, I don't know, how soon?
So I think some of this harvest stuff is, so Jeff's right. They're coming to talk about the harvest, but I think Roderick says later, not everyone's going to come. Like, yeah, we're having a harvest feast, but only people that really have important
if
stuff
you're
to
really
talk
coming,
about are gonna come.
I wrote that down. Roderick's quote, I might be paraphrasing here, man does not cross 100 leagues for a sliver of duck. So
Exactly.
the people that are coming are actually trying to like
Gain some
propose
favor,
something. Yeah.
get some questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with the people going, we kind of mentioned it. Bran is like all jacked up because like Manderley brings a bunch of people with him and Squires.
So I guess
and
Manderley's the
Lances
only one. I guess at the start of the chapter, Manderley's the only one that's here, right? Because he meets with Manderley like that day. And then throughout the chapter, people get here and he meets with them the next day and that type of thing. So
he's like a
Manderley's
big
here.
host, like you're saying.
Yeah. And
Bunch of squires.
yeah, when he goes down in the yard, or maybe he's just thinking this to himself, Big and Little Walter will be jousting with all the other squires.
Mm-hmm.
And he wishes he could do it, but he'll have to sit with Lord Manderley in the chambers. And he's just like not excited about like what he's going to do while the other kids are having fun. He's doing the boring shit.
Which is actually more prestigious, obviously, I guess, right? Like to be the fucking lord of the castle is
I guess, but when
probably
you're
better than being.
He's a kid. He doesn't want to do that boring shit. Are you kidding me?
I mean, at 9 or 8, I understand that that's not prestigious to him, but like, I mean, he's pretty much the top person there. Like,
and again, I'm paraphrasing, but in my notes I have it says Bran always wanted to be a knight, not a prince. So like, even though it is more prestigious, it's not whatever he ever wanted.
And he even mentions like playing the Lord. Like he knows that he's not even needed to be there. He's
like, why do I have to spend my time listening to stuff I don't even understand? It's just
formality.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't even remember if he's looking out the window or not, but Hodor comes in and starts to get him dressed. And we get a little bit more into like Bran wanting to be a knight and him just like kind of complimenting Hodor. Like, man,
he says Hodor
you could have been a dope knight. Like you're strong as shit. You've got deft hands, like the whole deal.
Yeah, because Bran talks about like how he tries to be independent and put his clothes on for himself and stuff. But sometimes it's just way easier if Hodor helps him. And he says that like Hodor, like once you teach him something, he does it like deftly and gently. He's just like good at like repeating tasks once he's taught something, even though he's simple. So he's like, I guess that's part of like you can train him well. He's like, you would have been a great knight. And he starts talking about some of the problems with traveling via Hodor. So they built this like basically wicker baby backpack for Bran to ride around on Hodor's back with.
Is this the first we're hearing of
slide
that?
his own legs in?
Yeah, I think before he used to just carry him like this, right? Like a baby.
I don't know.
Well, maybe
the
I'm
last
thinking
chapter didn't he have the basket?
I was gonna say maybe I'm thinking of the saddle, but I thought we talked about like Hodor putting him in
a basket. Yeah,
maybe I thought this was the first we're hearing of it. Maybe it is a little bit of a recap from the first one.
I think it's like more.
Yeah,
definitely more details about it this time.
Well,
like
Hodor
slamming his head into a.
Yeah,
he keeps knocking his head off. Shit.
Hodor smelled some fresh bread one time and got too excited.
What a dope story!
And just ran to the kitchen.
And they actually gave him a helmet. How like you got to be embarrassed already, but like
he needed stitches. Like Bran actually like needed stitches on his forehead.
I get it, but like Hodor, come on, brother. Like
I just love some bread. Here. Yeah,
I just want some bread.
So Bran decides he's going to make a quick detour by the yard. Nobody will mind. Wants to see what's going on with the squires because I guess like the lords and knights will come out later on, but right now the squires are like warming up the quintains, which is the thing that Tommen rode against.
That's the thing, like
got knocked off.
Tommen, I
didn't know what it was at first, and I was like, "You guys will explain it well." And then
we mentioned that we explained it last time.
It's just like a cross.
What was the last time?
It's like a cross with a shield on one side and a padded butt on the other side, and when you hit the shield, the padded butt swings around, so you got to ride fast.
It hits them. Yeah,
and they had this one.
But the faster you hit it, the faster that thing swings around. You know,
exactly.
Man, you got to hit it right.
So they give a description of what Big and Little Walter look like, and I don't know if they talked about this last time. They went into their lineage, but they talk about like how they have different sigils now, like how they don't both just have the Tower of Frey, right? They have Little Walter quartered the twin Tower of Frey with the brindled boar of his grandmother's house and the plowman of his mother's, Craighall and Derry respectively. Big Walter's quarterings were the tree and ravens of House Blackwood and the twinning snakes of the pages. They must be hungry for honor, Bran thought, as he watched them take up their lances. Stark needs only the direwolf.
It's weird that, I mean, I guess there's so many phrases that they're just trying to like differentiate themselves, but
yeah, I'm not going to make the blanket statement and say we don't ever see this really, but like I'm sure this is mostly a Frey thing or like probably a really, really large family thing. When you exactly what Jeff said, you're trying, how do you distinguish yourself against like
you gotta stand
9
out
brothers?
somehow.
Exactly. If you're not the oldest, how do you distinguish yourself amongst them? So that's what I'm kind of thinking too.
But it's also like strange how you get 2 old families, right? The Frey's an old family too. and like they just take a.
I don't think they're like old blood. I don't think they're super. I think they're actually like relatively new. Well, yeah, I think they said that in the first book.
Walter's been all right. Okay, maybe they don't have as like Walter's been holding the twins for how long? I mean, old man.
Yeah, but we're talking about like thousands of years. When we're talking about old.
They're not a part of the first men.
I think they're within like I think they're within like 300 or 400, like around Aegon's time-ish, not like Stark's times, thousands and thousands or whatever, right?
So if the Starks had as many as they did the Freys, you think it would be different, or you think they would just?
You're right. I bet you the age of the Freys is part of it too, because yes, they're a larger house now, but they're not like the Freys aren't like the head of anything. Like the Starks are the head of the North, or whatever you want to call that. The strongest lord, whatever the opposite of vassal lord is, right? So the Starks, right? The Tullys now, the Baratheons are the head of the Stormlands. The Freys are a large family, but they're not the head of anything. They're just kind of there.
They got a pretty important position.
Yeah, I mean, these other ones that we hear aren't big families either, right? So like Craig Hall Dairy and Pages and Blackwood. Blackwoods are an old family, but they're the only ones. The other ones are, I don't know about them. They might be old, but they're all minor. Like I can't imagine they bring more honor than the Freys. So yeah, I think you're probably right, Jeff. It's probably a mix of the small Frey family, but I think just having so many of them is probably more of it. And the other thing is we don't really hear about it now, but it's interesting, and I haven't even really kept track of it because it's one of those things that is just impossible to keep track of unless you're taking crazy notes like this. Is apparently like there is like division amongst the Freys. So like you have entire Frey, like just think about you have entire like 20 group. You have a group of like 20 Freys that all came from like Walter's second wife, and then you have a group that all came from the third wife, and they have completely different cousins, right? Potentially were all fostered, or half of them stayed at completely different places. So like, again, I don't know, but you have like the Dairy Freys and the Craigcall Freys or whatever who might not get along. Like, even though they're both Freys, they all have the last name Frey. Mm-hmm. They don't get along. Well, we see that in families in real life, right?
And the crazy part,
it's like that one aunt and uncle that like no one wants to hang out with at the Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but times 50 because there's so many of them. Yeah.
And just thinking about where they're married to like every different region. And in a time right now where there's four kings, they're like fighting each other. It's like a civil war. Like exactly. This should be called the Frey Civil War, not the War of Four Kings or whatever it's going to be.
It's like when you're playing roulette, Walter didn't go in and put all his chips on 36. He went in and put like 5 chips on 36.
One chip on everything.
Yeah, exactly. Like so he literally can't lose. He's going to lose no matter what, but he's going to be around to play the next hand. Exactly. So that's another strategy.
He's going to be around to play the next hand.
So how do Little Walter and Big Walter do here in this joust?
They do way better than fucking Tom, and they whooped his ass.
Yeah, they both pretty much do good. They both hit the thing. Bran thinks one hit it harder, but the other one sat the horse better. And again, this is where George is intentionally trying to confuse us, because I think Little Walter hits it harder, but Big Walter's had his horse better. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. But the names are flip-flopped, so the little is the big one and the big is the little one, right? So it makes sense.
And the big one's a little bit older too?
Yeah, I forget how it works that way, but it doesn't matter. It's like 54 days.
It's so confusing. I think Big Walter is the smaller one, but he's called Big Walter because he's older.
And he's older. Yeah. So they start coming over there and make fun of Hodor, right?
Yeah. They call him a horse. They say he's the ugliest horse they've ever seen.
Now there's an ugly horse. Yeah, that was a good burn, but I mean, it's kind of mean to Hodor.
Well, it's just because Bran's riding him around, right?
It's gonna be so.
I know. Thanks. No,
if you're making fun of Hodor, you're just a douchebag. Like that's awful. You're an awful person.
I'm not defending the Walters, but they're 9-year-old kids, and little kids just do douchebag shit all the time, though.
That's true.
So, still want to pun a little kid.
Yeah, 100%. So Little Walter, then Little Walter's horse wickers. Hodor says Hodor a few times. Bran's trying to defend him, and one of the horses wickers, and then somebody, Little Walter jokes like, "Oh, look, they're trying to talk to each other." He's like, "Oh, that means I love you." Hodor means I love you in horse. So Big Walter, the only time I think he actually really talks at all here is he says, "Be careful, he's gonna stick his wolf on you." And then Little Walter's like, "He's gonna bite through steel," and starts like pounding his like breastplate, right?
Yeah.
I always wanted a wolf cloak.
Yeah, saying he's gonna fuck up Summer.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here, boy.
Yeah, right, you little 9-year-old rat.
Get out of here.
Summer's probably huge at this point too. Like she's no little fucking pup. This is a fucking monster wolf.
He probably hasn't seen him since the last time.
Little Walter, probably.
All right.
This is where Lewin shows up.
Yeah, Lewin catches wind of what's going on. He's not happy.
Yeah.
Well, Bran fires back. Bran is like, I'm going to fucking set my wolf on you. He's going to eat you.
Well, yeah, but that's when he says, like, he can't bite through steel. Right?
Yeah.
And that's when Lewin
But
shows
Lewin
up.
was like, hey.
No. I thought
See, they're talking to each other. Hodor means I love you. You shut up, Frey. What will you do if I don't? And then he says he'll set his wolf on you, cousin. And he says, let him. I always wanted a cloak. Summer would tear your fat head off. It banged his mail.
That's what Bran
Pissed against
said.
his mail. Says, does your wolves have steel teeth to bite through plate and mail?
Enough.
Yeah.
So Lewin shows up. Nobody knows how much he heard, but he's basically like, what's going on here? And they're like, we were just joking with Hodor. It's no big deal. And then Lewin gets even more pissed. He's like, this is not how you're supposed to behave. And he says, a good lord comforts and protects the weak. I will not have you making Hodor the butt of cruel jests. Do you hear me? He's a good-hearted lad, dutiful and obedient, which is more than I can say for either of you. So Lewin gives him a little burn.
He pretty much fucking cooks him. Yeah.
but Little Water or Big Water like starts giving him lip back though. I forget which one it is.
Does he? Let me see.
Yeah, because Lewin says like, do you act like that back at the Freys or at the Twins? And he's like, if I want to.
Maybe earlier on, yeah.
I was like, damn, yo, fuck this little kid.
And he also warns Little Water to stay out of the Godswood and away from the wolves.
Mm-hmm. But that's where they play the crossing.
Yeah, exactly. So what are they going to do?
Gotta go. Come on.
So
let's get into the politics.
I think I assumed they were going to end up back in the Godswood. I actually was worried that the wolf was going to
escape the Godswood.
They were going to attack the
Dash.
wolf at some point throughout this chapter.
It's always a possibility with Shaggy. It's always a possibility with Shaggy Dog just getting free when all the man.
No, not that they got free. That they went to go fuck up the wolf.
Oh, gotcha.
That wolf would beat the shit out of them. All right. So Manderley's
They
waiting.
stabbed it before it knew what was going on. You know what I'm saying? Like if they just showed up and they were being nice to it, and then they stab it, like it's a little different than when Bran's there sicking him on it.
Yep.
They're sicking it on him.
So
they go to talk to Wyman, and on the way, Bran actually explains the whole thing to Lewin.
Let's call him Manderley. If we start throwing in fucking first names, we're gonna be
Manderley.
Fucking confused.
Or Wyman
as shit.
Manderley.
Manderley.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
with
there's more
Jeff.
than one
Manderley.
Manderley later. They talk about more.
When they no.
When it matters, we'll get to that.
Glow, back
Wyman.
me up on names here.
Wyman.
Well, then let's use full names because
Sir Wyman Manderley.
I'm on a first name basis.
Bran's going to see him. Lewin, when he explains what happened to Lewin, Lewin tells him, okay, you did a good job, but you're late. Like, you can't be keeping people waiting like this. Bran's like, are we going to talk of the war? And then Lewin gets pissed again. He's like, you're 8. You're not going to say fucking shit. You're going to sit there. And me and Roger are going to talk. And you're not there for anything.
which is so stupid. Like, let the kid go off. Like, you don't need the kid.
Yeah, like what's the worst that could happen, you know? But I guess it's an image thing, right?
Courtesy.
It's
yeah,
image and it's training.
It is
It's gotta
training.
be training.
That is true. It is training.
I would just feel like all
Just
right,
let
like
him go off. He turns into Joffrey real quick.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
so I think it's like you have to see how these things
Never mind.
work, how
Good
they
plan.
happen, how we talk to these people.
Good plan.
And he actually speaks up in some of these and doesn't do half bad.
Yeah.
So
he's
we'll
not
get there.
doing-
Towards the end, once it's been a little bit of repetition, he's good at saying like goodbye, and he learns how to say maybe really good. Oh, we'll pass it on to Rob.
Maybe.
So, Wyman, Manderley, and Roderick are eating. They already ate when Bran gets there. Lewin's
So
pissed.
I love Wyman. He's the man. He's funny.
He seems funny. I mean, he's
Bran
just a
gets
big
there, he's
fat
like, "Oh,
guy.
I'm sorry,
Seems
I'm
like a
late."
jolly good fellow.
Wyman's like, "Oh, the prince is never late."
Yeah, he gives him the Gandalf, you know, like wizard's
Gandalf
always
say
on
that?
time. Prince is like you make your own fucking schedule, man. I'm on your time.
Well, a prince is never late. People
who
arrive before him are really early.
It's a good line. So, the reason Manderley is here is he
Talk
wants
about a bunch of stuff, actually. Him and Manderley talk about the most, I think.
the first thing they talk about is he wants new customs agents, like border patrol, I guess, to make sure
I assume like tax. That was more
taxing.
tax stuff. People who go and collect taxes.
And
Just
the new
based
coin.
on the stuff
This is what Manderley wants.
Yeah. He wants new custom agents, or I guess they'll approve them. You got to approve them.
Yeah, it's confirmation. He probably already picked them. He just wants the king to give him, or the Lord to give him.
Because the old ones were giving
he's
away.
the king. He's the king.
We're still holding back taxes.
Yeah, they're still sending money south. Exactly. So he wants to keep money going into the north. So that's pretty. That tells you he's pretty
loyal
on
guy.
the Stark side here.
Well, this is also something that like Tywin Lannister or Littlefinger, I think, would request if this was if there was a new kingdom happening in their backyard. You know, like if you're the mint, you got to be taking a little extra off the top.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think these are like? What do you think? I mean, it's not like king. They're not like putting faces and shit on each coin. They're just fucking.
Oh, they might put Rob's face on it, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess we.
Let's stamp a wolf on it at the very least.
The southern ones have dragons and dragons in the Targaryen king's faces.
So now we have more currency. Great.
Yeah, right. And then the other thing he brings up is that he already did this. He stepped up to the fences, and he also wants to build a fleet because they haven't had a strong navy
in forever
since Bran the Burned.
Bran the Burner.
Bran the Burner.
His dad died on a boat or something, right? And he said never again.
Yeah. His father, Bran the Builder, I think tried to sail west or something like that and never came back. So his son burned all his ships. Yep.
But I mean, this guy's doing everything right, in my opinion. We see later some people are like, yeah, we're like saving like some food maybe.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, he sounds like he's prepping.
He doesn't talk about how much food he's saving at all, and he might not be saving.
I know, but I mean, he's like making defenses.
I was going to say he's
trying
not
to help.
saving any right now. He's probably not saving any right now.
That boy's eating. That boy eating good. All right. So now the conversation changes to Lady Hornwood, his cousin,
who gets brought up by literally every single person.
Yeah, this becomes the big political discussion: is who's going to wed Lady Hornwood.
And some of the options don't even involve wedding. The last one, Lewin thinks is actually a good idea, and Bran's proposal.
Give it to the bastard.
Well, that's Bran's idea. Lewin's proposal is a little bit more complicated toward the end. We'll get to it there.
It's kind of weird. Like Manderley's like, maybe I'll go marry her.
She was born a man. They all have like a weird like up their sleeve like reason too. So Manderley's reason is she was born a Manderley, so she was like his cousin. She is his cousin. Then married Hornwood, and now he wants to marry her again. Doesn't matter. He's also been a widower for 8 years and is lonely. And he says also if I'm too old. My son, Sir Wendell Manderley, who's off defending Cat right now, he needs a wife.
Which is also fucking weird. And
still weird.
Did he even said like he would take her name. So
no,
still
that's somebody else towards the end. That's something else towards the end. That's one of the complicated ones. Yeah.
Okay.
That's somebody who wasn't going to marry her. That was her nephew. Yeah.
Was it her nephew or
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
The Lord's nephew. Yeah, we'll get there.
I have it in my notes. I think it's
okay. All right.
But yeah, so then that's when he talks about his first son, Sir Wendell, and then after lunch, so then they have lunch, and then after lunch they bring up his other son, Sir Willis, who was captured on the Green Fork, the battle that Tyrion was in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he says he got a letter from Tywin.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tywin is now sending letters to Northern Lords.
Smart.
He's trying to get his people back and get some money and stuff out of it.
So what does Tywin want?
Tywin said, like,
trade.
Stop fighting.
Yeah, just pull out of the war. Just don't listen to Rob anymore and just go sit at your castle and we'll give you everybody back.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Free of charge.
Yeah, so he's trying to blackmail his people pretty much.
Exactly. I'm wondering, like, is Manderley the only one that got this letter? Probably not, right?
Not. Absolutely not. But it's pretty awesome how, like, Roger's like, well, you're not doing that. And he's like, fuck no.
Yeah, he's like, no way I am. He's like, but I just want to bring this up. I hope we're doing something. I hope Rob has something planned because my son is
I'd like to get him back.
Can you trade some other prisoners for him, please?
Yeah. And we get a little drop at Janis Slynn again. He's like, my son is captured and he's being held at Harrenhal. We know that's not a good spot. He's like, I don't believe in anything like that, but we don't happen to Janis. So
obviously that news is getting around.
He didn't even step foot there.
His way.
He didn't even make it there yet.
Yeah. And during this, Bran, the only really thoughts Bran has is he likes the warships. And then around lunchtime, he's getting tired. Doesn't want to be there. He hears people out in the yard. He wants to go down there. And by dinner, he's just like not having it. And then luckily they're done. This is when Lady Danella shows up. She came with just a few people, like not a huge,
like 4 people, I think
6 people, something like that. Bran says like, Bran gives her his sympathies, and she like takes it admirably. But I'm thinking like, Bran like lost his dad too. Like you could at least give the kid like sorry for your losses too, buddy. You know, like she lost her husband and her son
forever ago.
I mean, it's like it's got to be around the same time. But yeah, she takes it because she's lost her husband and her son, so that's why there's this big thing. Because not only does she not have a husband, but there's no heir anymore.
Yeah,
and they both died fighting.
Yeah. So
Winterfell will remember.
Yep, and they're like, okay, we'll talk on the next day, and then they talk on the next day, and she starts talking about food stores. And I think people talk about this chapter with like the food store stuff. It was like obviously super boring. But one of the, like, not a critique, but there's always the comment in Lord of the Rings, like, oh, but what was Aragorn's tax policy? Which is just like, people don't really talk about how like leaders actually do the logistics of ruling, and if they're good if they're actually good leaders. Like a lot of books are like the leader is kind of like the Robert Baratheon, right? And the good king is the one who's the good fighter throughout. Like if we had a book about Robert Baratheon's POV winning that rebellion, we'd be like, oh yeah, he's an awesome leader, and then he actually gets in the throne and just like whoring the whole time. He's like, he might not be that great. So a lot of people say that this is like a little bit of the showing that at least it's brought up in the Game of Thrones series, and they talk about people's political abilities outside of just, I mean, here it's not really, they're not doing anything. Potentially all this will get passed on to Rob in a future chapter, but yeah, so she's talking about stores. She's putting away 1/5, and Lewin's like, bump it up. Those are rookie numbers.
Get a quarter in there.
Get a quarter in.
At least she's doing a 5th. We hear some really rookie numbers.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
Some of
dude.
the other people are doing way less.
She might have a bigger house, though. Like more farmlands.
Yeah. She has this other concern that there's the Bastard of Bolton. We don't get his name here, but the Bastard of Bolton is massing men at the Dreadfort. And she hopes that she's going to take him to join the war, but when she went to ask, he was just like, fuck you, I don't answer to women. And Roderick says he doesn't know much about him, and then we get a little excerpt about what we know about this cat.
He lived with his mother until 2 years passed, when young dumb Eric died and left Bolton without an heir. That was when he brought his bastard to the Dreadfort. The boy is a sly creature by all accounts, and he has a servant who is almost as cruel as he is. Reek, they call the man. Said he never bathes. They hunt together, the bastard and this Reek. Not for deer. I've heard tales, things I can scarce believe, even of a Bolton. And now that my lord husband and my sweet son have gone to the gods, the bastard looks at my land hungrily. I thought I was a man that whole time until I realized at the end there.
No, you're good.
Yeah, it's a lady.
No, you're good.
So basically she wants, or no, she doesn't, she's not really asking for anything, but Bran wants to give her men after hearing this.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's pretty much like saying like, look, this is kind of creepy here. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Some fucked up stuff may be happening out my way.
Nobody really knows anything about this guy, but we hear weird stories, and he's gathering all these men, and he lives right next to me, and there's no one around me anymore. Roderick's like, as long as he just looks and doesn't do anything, we'll be good. But if he does do something, don't worry.
If he does, we're gonna
We'll
fuck
help you
him
out.
up.
Yeah.
And when you're ready, we'll talk about getting you married again.
Yeah, Roderick rolls that in.
It's a good segue.
She's like, against it. Like she's like, I'm old as fuck and
Well,
I'm ugly.
She gives Roderick a little wink when she walks out of the room, but she's like, she makes a funny comment. She says, I'm past having children, and I'm definitely not as beautiful as I was when I was a maiden, but I'm getting more suitors now than I ever have, which is kind of like, this is like, I don't know.
Poor lady.
Yeah. There's a little bit of sexism in the culture, I guess.
But she's loyal too.
They're trying to get that land is what's happening here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, obviously.
Roderick's like, so do I have a chance? Yeah. No, he's like, do you like any of them? And she's like, I won't wed unless.
Well, Roderick's not saying like, do I have a chance, right?
I know, no.
No, she gives him the wink at the end, and Lewin has to be the one to tell her.
I know. Yeah.
He's like, well, he's like, maybe we'll be able to find you somebody once your grief is over. And she's like, well, maybe you guys don't need to look too far to find anyone right before she leaves. And Lewin's like, oh, I do think she fancies you, Roderick. And Roderick's like, it wouldn't work.
Well, even funnier too. Like she's like, well, Morris Crowfoot is a drunken brute, and Manderley is way too fat. I don't have a bed big enough for him. And then exactly. I thought it was a really funny line from Bran, just Bran's being a kid. Yeah. Well,
hey Stan, hey Stanley, your heart sucks and you crush your wife.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, so Bran thinks that
men sleep on top of women.
When they share a bed, they got to sleep on top of them. Oh my god!
Sleeping under Manderley would be like sleeping under a horse or something like that, is what Bran says.
Oh fuck! But the important part is, and I don't know if we mentioned already, it's like we need to find a suitor here so the North just doesn't start fighting over it. You know what I mean?
Infighting. Yeah. We can't handle infighting right now. Yeah.
With no direct heir, there are sure to be many claimants contending for the Hornwood lands. The Tallhearts, Flints, and Karstarks all have ties to House Hornwood through the female line, and the Glovers are fostering Lord Harry's bastard at Deepwood Mott. The Dreadfort has no claim that I know, but the lands adjoin, and Roose Bolton is not to overlook such a chance. So that's kind of when Bran's commenting like, wow, that lady did not look happy. She just looked like beaten down by the world. And Roderick's like, yeah, she is. And then that's the explanation to why she's a danger. And he's like, Bran says, "Oh, well, Roderick, then you just marry her. Like, you'll be good for her, and then Beth will have a mom." So again, I think this is where he gets in. No, maybe he doesn't. He gets into his brothers later, but Roderick is Jory's uncle. Jory Cassell, the guy who died, like Rob or Ned Stark's right.
Obviously, same last name.
Well, that doesn't show that they're uncles.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm saying that tells nothing because there's so many fucking names here, and they're all cousins.
Well, Roderick says the main issue with him marrying her is that he's old. So
she's old too.
I guess we don't know how old. Like, not necessarily.
Older than childbearing. I mean, if it's
true that he's going to die first, though.
You're true. I don't know what that.
Because he says, but as soon as I died, she would just be back in the same spot. Exactly. So, like, he is assuming that. So I think he's probably older than her.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So this is when he suggests letting the bastard, who I don't know if they ever really talked about it too much. I mean, they mentioned in the quote I just read really quick. We hear about it later. There's a bastard who's been fostered at Deepwood Mott with the Glovers. And Bran's like, let him be there. And this doesn't involve her getting married to anybody. And he even says here he's thinking of Jon Snow. And he's like, well, the Glovers would like that. And again, they're the ones fostering him. So I'm assuming that's why he's saying that.
They would have a shoe-in.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, and maybe Lord Hornwood as well. And again, that's saying like, oh, maybe Ned would appreciate it if all his other sons died if you named John the heir, right? Because he stole his blood. So maybe that's why he would appreciate it. But not Lady Hornwood. But that's like naming John heir if Cat was the only one around, right?
Cat doesn't even like him eating food.
It's just stupid, though. Like, I mean...
It still makes sense, exactly. But I guess they're just trying to be like, they don't want to make them live in the same castle. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like that would normally be the least of his concerns for people is how comfortable Lady
at this
Hornwood
point
feels.
Like, I mean, she should know that having him around is better than nobody.
Yeah.
And especially if she knows that's all she has to do to not have to be wet again, if that's what she really wants. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like an easy way out.
So Lewin says it's a possibility, and they'll have to think about it. Bran has to be excused.
Can I get out of here?
And then he goes to see Summer.
So
we get a little break from these meetings. He goes to the Godwood. Summer comes over right away. He calls for Shaggy, but Shaggy does not. Shaggy like kind of just runs away.
Shaggy, mean little cuss.
Dips. Yeah, doesn't want to come over.
And
then splashy, splashy.
So Hodor takes him to Bran's favorite place.
The pool.
I remember in the first Bran chapter, or maybe the second.
Wasn't he afraid? He was afraid.
He like hated the Godswood. Yeah, like the one where he like got pushed from the tower. He's like running through the Godswood. Like, my least favorite place. He hated.
I don't know if he said he was least favorite place, but I thought he was just always afraid of.
He said he was creeped out by it or something.
I'm just saying he's had a total 180 since Bran 2. For sure. 1 year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he goes to his favorite place, the pool. And there's like ripples, and Bran's like, "Huh, that's so weird. It's not even windy." And then you're like, splash.
I was gonna say, to be fair, Bran can't walk anymore or climb, so like his favorite places have really probably been able to shrunk him.
Limited on the third.
And it reminds him of his pop too. Like he thinks.
So this is probably more fun than some of the other shit.
Skipping stones, skipping stones is cool.
So Asha's weird ass pops up out of the water. Turns out she was trying to touch the bottom. And
Bran didn't know there was a bottom.
Well, there still might not be. It sounds like she didn't make it there.
Sounds like she didn't find it. Sounds like Osha did not find it. Yeah,
still might not be.
And we just find out like Osha, like really skinny, like kind of muscly, has a ton of scars that she's really proud of.
Yeah, I think it was funny. Bran's like, "Isn't that cold? Like, how do you swim in there?" She's like, "I suckled on icicles as a babe. I like the cold." Like, wildlings just built different, right? You know what I mean?
They do be built different.
I thought the water was pretty hot. I thought it was
the hot springs are, but I don't know. That's what we're saying. I don't know.
What the fuck's going on here?
I don't know if the springs go down there.
I feel like we talked about this before, and I maybe even brought up this passage when I was like, I'm pretty sure somebody swims in it and they say it's cold, but I don't know.
Well, some of them are cold. Yeah.
I don't think this is like a spring.
Yeah, it's not a hot spring.
It goes down forever. Isn't that what a spring is?
I thought this is where the fucking like what they were pumping through. I don't know.
I mean, that could be like a pool over, man. Like it just depends what feeds it.
I don't know.
None of us are geologists.
Whatever.
I'll ask my buddy. My roommate's a geologist. Okay. He's not
so she hears the rumors of Bran having to defend Hodor's honor. Just kind of a funny little thing about giants with Hodor and like.
Well, she does when they're talking about the scars. She says, Bran says like, "Oh yeah, you fought giants," and she's like, "No, I fought men, and I even killed one Night's Watchman." And then well, the thing she says about Hodor being a giant, she's like, "It's a funny world where it's a fool boy who mocks a giant, and a mad world when a cripple has to defend him."
Yeah.
Yeah, because she heard about the little water incident.
Yeah, I think that's a good little quote there too. And when later Bran's like, yeah, like Hodor doesn't fight anybody, like.
It's not later. That's like the next sentence.
Yeah, the next.
He never knew they were mocking him. Yeah, he never fights.
He doesn't fight anybody. Septon Shale says he's a gentle spirit, and I was like, yeah, and hands strong enough to rip a man's head off. He's like, okay, good point.
Yeah, you get him pissed enough, he'd probably go on a spree.
And she has like another little poetic line about Big Walter. The big one Little Walter. The big one they call Little. It comes to me, he's well named. Big outside, little inside, and mean down to the bones. So again, this is where like Big Walter, I don't think really did anything in this, at least in this chapter.
Little Walter's just
Little Walter's the kind of the douchey one. Yeah.
So the bigger one is the douchier one. Got it.
Yeah.
Bigger in size.
But
Little Walter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so confusing.
It is confusing. All right, and then she gets asking about if he's still having his dreams.
He just pushes his aside. He's like, "Get out of here! Don't talk about that."
He's like, "No," and she's like, "You should lie better than that for a prince." And where are they?
In the God's
Wood.
In front of a heart tree.
Lie.
Yeah.
John said you can't lie in front of a heart tree. Bran's lying in front of a heart tree, so I guess it doesn't mean like you can't like physically lie in front of a heart tree.
It probably means you're supposed to not.
I was thinking like, oh, maybe I was like, I'm gonna keep an eye out. Maybe no one literally ever lies in front of a heart tree. And then here we are, like 2 chapters later, Bran is like getting called.
Is this a heart tree or just a weirwood?
It's a heart tree. A heart tree is the tree at the center of the God's Wood. Remember, we googled this.
With the face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it has a face. Does this one have a face though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, it's crying.
Damn it!
Yeah, I know.
It's
I was
crying.
He lied in front of a freaking heart tree, dude. What the fuck is that?
I think it's like a religious thing, like you're probably not supposed to lie in a church.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But you can, but like, I mean.
Or it's just like, why would you lie here? God knows type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, who are you actually lying to? We know.
He's lying to Osha. But Osha knows anyway.
He kind of can't lie because she knew
maybe
right
it means
away.
you can't get away with a lie because he doesn't get away with this one.
Yeah,
All
that's
right, you're
true.
stretching it now, I think.
I think I agree with Nelson on this one.
Oh, you don't know shit, Glo.
Yeah, you're fucking dumb.
You guys are both dumb.
Good comeback. I know you're.
If you wanted my comeback, you should ask your mom for it, Kyle.
Grow up, Glo.
So Bran tells her his dreams are his own business. And Gage is like, well, the kitchen's my business. Or Osha's like, well, the kitchen's my business. If I don't get back in time, Gage is going to be pissed. So she leaves.
So does Bran.
Hodor takes him back up to his room, and he's kind of pissed about the whole dream talk the whole way up. And he tried to fight sleep that night, but it eventually took him. Somebody want to read this quick quote about his dream?
She should never have talked about the wolf dreams. Bran thought as Hodor carried him up the steps to his bedchamber. He fought against sleep as long as he could, but in the end it took him as it always did. On this night he dreamed of the weirwood. It was looking at him with its deep red eyes, calling to him with its twisted wooden mouth, and from its pale branches the three-eyed crow came flapping, pecking at his face and crying his name in a voice as sharp as swords.
So in hindsight, this is like a precursor to the first dream. Or to the second dream.
Yeah,
the second dream starts with it immediately pecking at its eyes and at his head. And this one, it basically flaps up to him. So Bran gets woken up to a horn when the Umber men arrive the next day. It's Moore's Crowfoot Umber and Hother Horsebane Umber. Bran describes them as blustery men in the winter of their days with beards as white as the bearskin cloaks they wore. A crow had once taken Moore's for dead and pecked out his eye, so he wore a chunk of dragon glass in its stead.
Kind of badass.
As old Nan told the tale, he grabbed the crow in his fist and bitten its head off, so they named him Crowfood. She would never tell Bran why his gaunt brother Hother was named Horsebane. So, we will find out why Hother is named Horsebane.
We do?
Spoiler.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of guess it, but
yeah, I mean, kind of.
He's the bane of whores.
Yeah.
So the next note I have is that Moors wants to marry Lady Hornwood.
Yeah, it basically goes right to them talking, and that's like the first thing. Moors brings it up right away.
Woman's like, chill out, she's still grieving.
And then Hother wants something completely different. He wants to build ships to stop the wildlings because they're coming around Eastwatch because there's not enough men at Eastwatch, and they're digging. They're fucking groundhogs.
They're digging.
So this is
Who's digging?
They're not
But
digging.
they're crossing the bay.
Yeah, they're
boats.
rowing.
Yeah, hold on. It says
Rowing.
they go to ground quick as weasels.
So I think when they hit the shore, they just peace out, like scatter.
I thought they were tunneling.
Cop scattered.
Yeah.
What's that from?
Super bad.
Everything.
It might be super bad.
Anything where you run away from the
Any
cops?
party movie.
I got a map I'll pull up real quick. So this is just the map of the north. The only thing I have on here is where Lady Hornwood's. That's the orange dot because her house isn't on here for some reason. But yeah,
And
so
where is...
he's at Last Hearth.
Oh, I see Winterfell.
So yeah, Winterfell is basically left of the Dreadfort, and straight up from the Dreadfort is Last Hearth in that forest. It's kind of hard to see.
Yep, I see it.
Yep, and so he's saying that they're coming from the Bay of Seals around, and that's why he's dealing with them. Manderley's down here, and when he's asking for warships earlier, he said he just needed the supplies to build them because he had enough men. So basically, well, you got the wood, he has the men, you guys work together. And then the other thing I just want to point out while we have the map up is where just the Hornwood Castle is, because they said that the Boltons are getting stuff from the Dreadfort.
So then where the Manderleys?
The Manderleys are White
White
Harbor.
Harbor.
There's this huge one down here. This is where Cat.
Okay, yeah.
So
So,
this is where-
they're pretty far from each other, though.
Yeah, this is where Kat
Yeah.
went when she came up from the Vale,
Yeah.
and then she went down to Moat Cailin.
And that's why the
And then
swamp
the other
shaw.
The other one later, they say Deepwood Motte. It's hard. This was another one hard to see. It's because it's in the middle of the forest. It's in the forest to the left of Winterfell, so to the
I
west.
see it. Yeah, right below that peninsula.
Right below Bear Island. Yep, so that's where the Mormonts are from.
Oh, Bear Island, you say?
So this is pretty much everything. I cut off a little bit on the left. There's not much over there. Pretty much just a few more peninsulas. But yeah, just figure I show that because we get another bunch of lords for the first time, so I figured we'd show where everything's at. in the
Cool.
north.
All right, so we talk about, do we need to go into, like, they start making fun of Manderley, like, oh, he's fat, like, I don't want to work with him. If you cut him open, 10,000 eels would
Yeah,
wiggle out.
That's what his men say. That's what his own men say about him, right?
His own people mock him as Lord Lamprey,
Yeah.
which is an eel.
No, it says the man can scarce walk.
Before that, his own people mock him as Lord Lamprey,
yeah.
which a lamprey is
Lamprey.
like an eel, pretty much.
Yeah, they
Is
have
that
a
what
bunch
it
of
is?
lamprey pies in Game of Thrones. I figured it was Neil.
In White Harbor?
So Roger basically says, like, he's fat, but he's not stupid. You guys are going to work together, or Rob will know of it. And, like, fine. But they, like, were grumbling a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
While they were meeting, the Glover men arrived.
And the Towhearts.
And a large group from Torn Square. Yep. So Deepwood
You
Motte.
didn't show us where Torn Square
It's
was.
to the south
It's just
of Deepwood
It's
Motte.
just south of Deepwood Motte.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right outside the woods.
Deepwood Motte.
The steward of the Glovers is the one who came because the Glovers are down fighting.
Yeah. And his wife is young. Has a young child. So the steward came, but Bran thinks it's the steward who's in charge anyway. This guy doesn't seem too clever. This is the guy who's only putting.
What's the steward in the rank of, like, who would be a?
So this is like where I was confused. I thought it like was like a high ranking. So like I feel like Roderick here is the steward, but he's also
And the
he's
Castleton?
also the Castellan. So it's
Castellan.
it's confusing for me because in Pike, it seemed like the steward was that like old lady, like that old hobbly lady that Theon gets taken to his room by.
Right.
She's like, I run the castle now. Like that's what a steward is, right? It's a person.
And that's what John is too, right? He's
exactly a steward's like an
A
assistant
steward.
to somebody.
yeah.
The steward is to manage or look after another's property. So like he's like the one left in charge, kind of.
What's the Castellan then?
The governor of a castle. I mean, it's kind of, it's like governors and, what are other positions like that?
They're very
Bunch of
similar.
bullshit.
They're all- the steward for a lord or lady and a castellan, I guess, is very similar. But yeah, he's basically the castellan. He doesn't seem too smart. The stuff that we hear, they're only putting away 1/10 of their harvest, and the reason for this is because he heard from a hedge wizard that they were going to have like a fall summer, spirit summer before the winter came.
Uh-huh.
And Lewin had a few things to say about hedge wizards, and Roger's like, okay, just bump that up to 1/5 and we'll be happy. And Roderick asks about Larence Snow, who is this Hornwood bastard that we heard about earlier, that's been fostering with them. And he says the bastard, is witty and courageous. And Lewin's like, yeah,
His wits and courage, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you might not be wrong about that. This is what Lewin says to Bran, right, later on.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, that's a good idea, buddy, bud.
So he's like, you might be a good
This is
lord
where we
one
get
day.
into...
Well, Lewin tells
Yeah.
Bran he might be a good lord one day, and he's like, I'll never be a lord. Rob's gonna marry a Frey girl.
He'll have kids.
And Roderick says, maybe so, but I was married 3 times and I had nothing but daughters. Beth being the only one that is left, and my brother had 4 sons, and Jory was the only one that lived to manhood. So Roderick's just saying, like, we don't know what's going on, and it even says, like, we never know what the morrow. When we speak of the morrow, nothing is ever certain.
Good line.
That is a good line.
Also, it's weird. Like they always refer to Robb as king when they're talking to the Northern Lords, but like that conversation they talk about it. Like Bran should be saying like, "I'll never be king," not "I'll never be Lord." Because like even if Robb
he might
is
actually be
Lord of Winterfell.
Well, the thing is, like, if Robb's king, maybe he makes like a capital somewhere, and then Robb, like, that's not Winterfell, maybe, and then Bran becomes Lord of Winterfell because Robb's. I'm not just saying it's like that's what happened when Aegon took over.
Yeah,
there's stuff that doesn't involve his death that could put
like
Bran in charge. Sweet.
He could be,
or just in charge of something else.
Lord of Winterfell,
yeah, but Winterfell's like in the center of the North, though. So like,
all right, he's just positing another option. Like there's things that could happen.
So the next day they talk to Leopold Tarhart, who is the brother of the Lord Tallhart, Lord Haley's Hallis Tallhart.
I don't know his name.
Lord Helman Tallhart is the Lord, and this is Leopold, his brother.
First thing Tallhart brings up is that he has a nephew who's raising a band of
wild
fighters.
hares.
Yeah, the wild hares. I love that name.
Line. And they just like took it full fledged and like are wearing.
It's because they were training. They were anxious for war. They all thought themselves the young wolf. And when he told them that they were nothing but young rabbits, they called themselves the wild hares, tied rabbits against their lances, and started.
That's awesome.
Around. Bran thinks it's awesome too. Roderick's like, get those boys back inside. Tell them to stop being stupid. Bran remembers,
but that's like, well, what's
Bran
wrong
remembers
with that?
Benfred pretty fondly. He says he was big, bluff, loud boy who had visited multiple times. He was friends with Theon. And then Leopold talks about Lady Hornwood, and this is the kind of confusing one.
This is the weird one, yeah.
So
Leopold says he's gonna. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. Well, I believe that it's Hornwood's niece or nephew. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Or was it her nephew?
Hornwood's nephew, which is her nephew because they're married.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah. All right, nephew by marriage. So that they would foster him, and then like potentially, if she likes him enough, he could, or if the king wants it, declare him a Hornwood officially, so that he could become the heir.
So he's married to Lady Hornwood's Lord Hornwood's sister. So Lady Hornwood's like his sister-in-law, kind of. I don't know if it works, if it jumps double like that. But anyway, his son is Lady Hornwood's nephew. And he would just send her to Foster, just like Theon, not really just like Theon Foster, but like Ned fostered at the Eyrie.
What do you mean if it jumps double? You mean like...
Because he's married to Hornwood's sister. So obviously Hornwood is his brother-in-law, but is Hornwood's wife his sister-in-law?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so, yeah. You're still in-law. In-law.
Yeah.
So he's sister-in-law to Lady Hornwood then, and then his son would go foster with Lady Hornwood, eventually take the name, and because there is enough blood there, right? Like potentially he has the same blood that the heir had before he died, like percentage genealogy wise.
It's still weird.
So he puts that up as another solution that involves Lady Hornwood not getting married.
Why is that weird though, Jeff? I think it's a way for him to end up with the land
and not his name though.
So
you could end up.
It's his mom's name. He's literally taking his mom's name.
Yeah, but
it is mom name.
Sure,
mom name.
But
it's 2021, dude.
No, it's not.
Oh shit, you're right.
But that's the point of the proposition.
I just feel like
because it's his mom.
Like, all right, you're gonna give. Yeah,
they wouldn't just say like anybody go take the Hornwood name.
I feel like everything here is selfish. Like them fighting for these lands is selfish. Like he would 100%. Want it to be.
This guy wants his son to be the Lord.
But he'd want his son to be.
The marriages in this book are selfish.
But he'd want his name to be Talhart, not Hornwood. Like there's no. Like it's just weird that.
I guess, but name seems secondary when what matters most is your son going to be the Lord of something at the end of the day.
He's setting his son up, yeah.
Sure. But so that's one of
still fucking weird.
That's like the second. That's like basically the last suggestion that we meet. Lewin throws in another one later. But yeah, I think he leaves.
Yeah, he says. That's when Bran's like, "Thank you. We'll bring it up with Robb."
Bran brings
and
it up.
Lady Hornwood.
Yep. And he was surprised that Bran spoke, and he looks at Bran with a little bit of pity and a little bit of gladness,
happiness,
and gladness that it wasn't his own son. And Bran hated the man for a moment. But then he leaves, and Lewin's like, "Oh, that boy's actually not a good option. He's half Hornwood by blood." And he's like, he's still only a boy, and it would be hard to defend his lands against some of these other people who are trying to get it if it came to that. He's like, we'll need to think of this carefully and give Robb our best counsel. And Lewin points out that Robb has some new friends that he might need to cement alliances with or potentially like reward post-war, those being the Riverlands people who are now his vassals. So he might want to marry one of them to Lady Hornwood to give them lands in the north or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, yeah, we'll need to give some good counsel and send this on to Robb. And then the next few days, they got some letters from everybody else. They got letters
Hold on. Bran's got a great dig here.
Huh? Oh, give him the phrase.
Yeah. Lady Hornwood can have one of our phrase. She can have both of them if she likes.
Roger's like, you're a cruel man. You're a cruel boy.
Yeah, so everyone who didn't come sent a letter, except for Hallen Reed, who's the Moat Cailin.
Greywater Watch. It's actually south of Moat Cailin.
Wait, I thought he was...
But yeah, everyone sent a letter except for him and Serwyn, but Serwyn comes the next day.
It's
Greywater Watch.
No, he's Moat Cailin.
No, he's not Moat Cailin.
Hallen Reed?
Yeah. Greywater Watch.
That's far
Greywater
south.
Watch. It's south of Moat Cailin. It's a moving castle in the bogs.
I thought he was.
You said it's a moving castle?
Yeah, they said it never stays in one place. Ravens can't find it. That's what they say about it.
I thought he had Moat Cailin.
Spoiler.
I thought he had the swamps, but yeah. All right. So yeah, Clay Serwyn shows up.
Yeah. So those two haven't showed up, and Clay shows up the next day at the very end of the chapter.
And Bran knows him, right?
Yeah, they're kind of friends.
Yeah, they're friends.
Yeah, he said he was a chill lad growing up. He was
He's friends with all the brothers. Yep.
Was it John?
Just everybody. He says he was kind of friends with all the brothers. And he says hi to Bran. He's like, do I have to call you Prince now? And Bran's like, if you want. And he's like, why not? Everyone else is a king or a prince now. Did you get the letter from Stannis? So did Winterfell not get the letter? Or Lewin and Roderick playing little...
They're hiding it from him.
I think they're hiding it from him. We're just
because they would have had to tell all the lords that they met with too, because that definitely would have been a topic of discussion in every single one of these meetings, right? They would have had to like whisper, like, "Hey, don't bring this up." Is kind of what I was thinking.
That might have been the case, but I don't know.
I just thought it weird that this was not brought up till now.
But how do you make sure that? I don't know.
I mean, just tell Manderley,
because he's supposed to be there greeting them. I mean, they could have told Manderley, but like he's sitting there greeting them. Like, why wouldn't Lady Hornwood when she first showed up say like
that type thing? Yeah, I'm not sure. They don't really talk about it.
What are you guys going to do about
Stannis? It's not a huge deal. I just thought it kind of weird when I got to this point. Yeah. I mean, he's ready. He's keeping it suspenseful for the end of the chapter. So Clay tells him what's going on, basically what's happened in the letter. And somebody read the last quote to the end of the chapter. Glow, you do it. You haven't read yet.
This is where I felt kind of like an idiot for saying that there's no proof. I forgot all about the proof that we had of Bran seeing it. But even him saying I saw it, still no proof.
Yeah, I feel like bastards are more proof than Bran, probably.
For a moment, Bran felt as though he could not breathe. A giant hand was crushing his chest. He felt as though he was falling, and clutched desperately at Dancer's reins. His terror must have shown on his face. Bran? Clay Kerwin said. Are you unwell? It's only another king. Robb will beat him too. He turned Dancer's head toward the stables, oblivious to the puzzled stares the Kerwins gave him. His blood was roaring in his ears, and had he not been strapped onto a saddle, he might well have fallen. That night, Bran prayed to his father's gods for dreamless sleep. If the gods heard, they mocked his hopes, for the nightmare they sent was worse than any wolf dream. Fly or die! Cried the three-eyed crow as it pecked at him. He went and pleaded, but the crow had no pity. It put out his left eye, and then his right, and when he was blind in the dark, it pecked at his brow, driving its terrible sharp beak deep into his skull. He screamed until he was certain his lungs must burst. The pain was an axe splitting his head apart. But when the crow wrenched out its beak, all slimy with bits of bone and brain, Bran could see again. What he saw made him gasp in fear. He was clinging to a tower miles high, and his fingers were slipping, nails scrabbling at the stone, his legs dragging him down, stupid, useless, dead legs. Help me! He cried. A golden man appeared in the sky above him and pulled him up. The things I do for love, he murmured softly as he tossed him out, kicking into empty air.
Kyle, what do you think this dream is about?
What do you think, Kyle?
I don't know.
Cal?
This one's too deep.
Call back to everything.
I mean, it's Jamie pushing him out the window because, I mean, that was exactly what he said when he did it.
The things I do for love.
But, yeah, like I said, I mean, Bran was he was bound to slowly remember this the whole time.
Somebody force-fed it to him, though.
What do you mean?
Serwyn literally says, oh, Jamie and Cersei sleep together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess you're right. I guess he didn't just piece it together, but the same time, like this guy didn't know anything about it. Like it's not like he's like, come on, you saw him.
Exactly,
you know, like. Plus, I mean, he wasn't just sleeping on top of her.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a little different than with Bran.
Well,
They were wrestling.
Although, didn't he say he saw dogs doing it or something?
I think something like that. Somebody
Go
else
check your
Spanish
maybe
about
maybe
it.
I was bathing. But yeah, that's why I had Bro read it from the basically like when Serwyn first says it, because like Bran's still there and he's like he has this like pounding in his chest like while he's awake and he feels like he's about to fall off his horse. Like it impacts him like immediately. Like he has this like whole shit moment. Yeah, light bulb goes off.
Deja vu.
Yeah. So, we've been going for a while. Any predictions, Kyle?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like
kind of hard to leave that and predict, but
Yeah. I mean, there's not really.
that's what I was saying.
Hornwood thing? What do they do with that?
Who gets with Hornwood?
As if this is like.
Is it her nephew? The bastard?
How much food do they have
Or
come
owner.
winter?
Find out next episode on Bran 3. What do you mean? How much food do they have? I mean, I think food's going to be a problem.
I'm just joking about stuff we could predict on because those are the two
Okay.
things they talked about was food stores and Lady Hornwood all chapter.
Hornwood. I mean, I think Rob's going to owe it to somebody. I think that's probably the smartest thing anybody said about that. Was like
The Riverlands.
maybe not the Riverlands necessarily, just somebody saves him or something.
Oh,
gives him some peace. You know, we'll see. I don't
Do
really.
do we think Bran, does he wake up at the end of this chapter, or is he does?
No.
He doesn't even really wake up. What if he like doesn't even remember the dream? It's one of those. He wakes up and he doesn't even
I
know
feel
he
like he
dreams.
remembers most of his. He like hates sleeping so much because they're so vivid.
He kind of
And
does hate it.
All right. Well, Nels?
Nope.
Signing
Yep,
off?
we're good. I ain't got anything else.
All right. Bye, Kyle. Get the hell
Not
out
the
of here.
most thrilling chapter. What's the next one? I don't even know. Who's the next character?
Tyrion
Tyrion
Is
again.
it? I think it is.
I think I told you guys we had a bunch of Tyrions back to back here. Not back to back, but very
A lot of
very
moving
quick.
parts everywhere. Got to get this out somehow.
All right, should be a good one. See you guys in the next one. See you guys in the spoiler section. Oh, also, we had a
Mr.
comment
Cal.
asking how anybody who listens could get a hold of like the frag count. I guess I can put other stuff up there. I've put the timeline, some of the pictures we use. I put it on a Discord. I'll start putting in the links of all of our Spotify, Apple stuff, as well as YouTube links if anybody's interested. So, check out the Discord. We're completely abandoning the Twitter account and moving to Discord. So do not follow the Twitter account.
You said you're going to add a link for the Discord, I'm guessing?
Yep, I'll put a link in the Discord description of whatever you're watching this on.
And you can talk to Nelson if you have questions directly for him. He'll
exactly.
chat
There'll be
with
a
you.
chat room. We can all talk.
We can all talk.
All right.
Take y'all.
All right, see you
All
guys.
right, bye, guys. See you in the spoiler section.
Bye.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
See you later, cows. Great
Bye,
hanging out, buddy.
cows.
We'll see you on the next show for Tyrion 4. I think Tyrion 4. But now, on to the spoiler section for Bran 2. Guys, what are your hot takes? You
Hot
got any?
take.
Nothing crazy.
Coming at you.
What do you guys got? I don't see what you guys got.
All right. I don't have much either.
I mean, they just bring up fucking Ramsay Bolton twice being a freak.
With Reek?
So which one's? I thought Reek was Ramsay at Winterfell.
Yes.
He pretends to be Reek.
Yes.
And then Theon becomes Reek.
Yes. Jeff's
Reek's
right.
a fake person. Reek's not
Reek
real.
is real. Reek's a real person who Ramsay has before he comes to live with the Dreadfort. Dude's disgusting. He even if he washes, he smells. He just has some BO. Like he just always stinks. Like he's so bad smelling. But yeah,
We all know that guy.
Ramsay
We all know
takes
that
him and
person.
hunts with him, and he's not as much of a torture servant as Theon is. I don't think it's more of actual a friend who no one likes except for Ramsay, and Ramsay probably abuses him, but not as bad as Theon. But yeah, he does the bad stuff with him, and when they're about to get caught, Ramsay dresses Reek in all Ramsay's clothes, including this ring that only his father, that his father gave him, that basically symbolizes, "Hey, I'm Ramsay." Gives all that stuff to Reek. He puts on Reek's clothes, and then he gives Reek his horse because Reek's horse fell down, which is why they were getting caught. And he tells Reek to ride back to the Dreadfort. Reek gets caught. They think that's Ramsay because he just dressed him up and all his stuff. And when they catch Ramsay, he's pretending to be Reek. And he's like, "Oh, I was just a servant. Take me with, I'm okay. Don't kill me." And they don't. and that's how he gets out of that. And then when he captures Theon, he names him Reek after his old friend / prisoner torture buddy Reek.
Guy, thing, person.
So that's how that all goes down here. And also, while he is under the captivity in Winterfell, he gets let out when Theon takes over because he was like, "Hey, I was a captive. I'm not against you. I was against them." And he's like, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense." So Theon lets him out, and then he's the one that tells Theon to kill the farmers' children, the miller's boys.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he's fucked up.
He is fucked up. So I really only have one thing. I know Nelson's going to get into every name, which is fine, and there's probably a bunch of history.
Not that much. So one thing I'll go with, what happens with Lady Hornwood? Who does she marry?
I forget. As soon
as she leaves this feast, she gets attacked by Ramsay Bolton. He marries her, locks her in a tower until she eats her own fingers off and dies.
Interesting.
Ramsay Bolton attacks her immediately on the way home from the feast.
So, and then
what did Bran
Roderick,
want to do?
he sends Sir Roderick.
Bran wanted to send 100 people. He would have saved Lady Hornwood if we did what Bran said. So one of the notes I have is just like, Bran's obviously not in a king role. He's not making any decisions. But if Bran's going to be king yet, this is the first chapter where we get him, like, at least in his own head being like, oh, this is what I would do. Oh, I like this idea, not that idea. Right? And when you look at everything Bran does in this chapter, for the most part, he's pretty right? He does the right thing with Hodor.
Yeah. He
protects Hodor. Lewin says a good lord defends the weak. He likes the warships. So that was another note I have. Who knows anything about these warships? And sorry, Jeff, I kind of just skipped your point, but we'll come back to it.
It's okay. It's not a big deal.
The warships. What happens with these warships later in the books?
They get stolen.
Nothing. We don't hear anything. Davos sees them when he goes to White Harbor. There's a lot of them, but we never hear of them doing anything. So a lot of people think that the Starks have a secret fleet somewhere that's going to swoop in and have like a huge impact on some naval battle. And it's going to be this warship that we've heard, and I think we will continue to hear talk of this fleet being built, but we never actually see him in action. So people think that this is going to be like a thing that plays an important role in an upcoming book. So it's just funny to see that seed getting planted so early in Clash of Kings, and where we are at the end of Dance of Dragons, we still haven't seen these ships do anything. We've just seen like them.
No, I didn't remember them at all.
Yeah.
So Davos sees them?
Davos goes to White Harbor under Stannis' orders, and when he's there, he looks at all the ships in the port, and he sees like a bunch of ships that have like
I remember
newly constructed ships, I think.
And what's going on with Mannerly? Like his sons die, so he's all pissed off, and then
one of his sons dies for sure in Harrenhal.
He sends meat pie.
I think one dies at the Red Wedding.
Yeah, so then he does the Mannerly meat pies. Yeah, so. When Davos is at
Willis dies at Harrenhal?
The other one dies at Harrenhal, yeah.
Damn, I didn't know both his sons died.
I'm pretty sure. So he basically, there's a bunch of Freys visiting him. He's pretending to take their side and basically accept these letters that Tywin's been sending. Like, hey, maybe I think when all this is happening, Willis, or whichever one's at Harrenhal, is still alive, because that's what this is about. That's why he's joining Tywin. He's basically saying like, I'll mount Davos's head on the front of my gates if you give me back my son. And they're like, deal. Then he mounts a fake head on his gates, and everyone thinks it's actually Davos, and he gets his son. I think he was supposed to get his son back, but I'm pretty sure his son dies at Harrenhal. I don't remember how, but I'm pretty sure his son dies at Harrenhal, but I might be wrong about that. Anyway, the warships are like an important. So just like in terms of the stuff Bran thinks about, he's good with Hodor. The warships, we haven't seen if they were a good idea or not yet, but it sounds like they've actually been created and potentially will have an impact later. He wants to send 100 people with Lady Hornwood. That would have been a good thing, right?
Do you think 100 would have been enough? We don't know how many.
What's better than nothing?
Has. Well, I'm sure it's not 100. Yeah,
remember
100 seems like a lot.
They said that she only came with 6 men. Yeah, so
and 100 seems like a lot just because everyone else is at the actual war.
Exactly. Yeah. So Bran, when in terms of the Hornwood marriage, he says that Roderick should marry her, but after he hears the reasonings why that's a bad idea, he changes his idea to the bastard, which again we don't know, like none of this really comes like. Basically, Ramsay takes the land over, but maybe at the end of the day they do end up giving it to the bastard. Who knows? I'm not sure how it ends. If it does end, if they ever get it back from Ramsay or whatever. And then the last thing, which is maybe a misstep, is Bran likes the wild hares, which is the men at Torrhen Square who are going around the countryside with the rabbit skins on their lances. So the one thing we hear about that guy at Torrhen Square, whatever his name was, Brendan Tallheart or something like that. Yeah, Brenfred Tallheart.
This is the wild hare, right?
Yeah.
He's the leader of the...
Benfred.
Well, they're about to die, right? Don't they lose Torrance Square? Or maybe they don't die.
And the one thing that Bran says about him is that he was a big, bluff, loud boy who visited multiple times, and he was friends with Theon Greyjoy.
And Theon comes right
Theon's
in.
one. Well, Theon doesn't actually go to Torrance Square. He commands Dagmar Cleftjar to go to Torrance Square so that he can take Winterfell. But yeah, like Theon commands this guy's downfall, and Benfred dies when Theon takes Torrance Square. I think all the Wild Hares do because they like ride out to try and stop the fight, and they get slaughtered by Dagmar. So
that's
it's just funny. We heard about this
funny.
character who's
Fucking
like,
Theon.
and Bran's like, "Oh, that's a good idea," and we find out very quickly that it isn't a good. Well, it's not that it's a bad
Well,
idea.
they're still there to protect the land.
And maybe if they weren't at Terrence
stink.
Square and they were out riding around, maybe they would have lived. So who knows? Maybe Bran was right there. But yeah, so that was just on the Lady Hornwood topic. I think covering that, what happens to her next, was good. And then along those lines, Bran makes some good decisions here that maybe are foreshadowing him being king. Maybe not foreshadowing, but if he does become king, maybe he's making good choices. And along those lines, when he's talking to Lewin about like, oh, I'll never be Lord of Winterfell. Maybe you won't ever be Lord of Winterfell, but you might be Lord of the Seven, like Lord of the Seven,
might be
King of the Seven, yeah,
King of Sendoms.
King of the Seven.
Or you might be an old guy in a tree that we never see again.
Exactly. So could go either
That's
way.
my vote.
But I think there's a lot of maybe not a lot, but looking back, if Bran is king, there's a lot of this is like a setup chapter to that. There's a lot of political here.
Yeah,
There's even that conversation where it's like you will never be Lord type thing.
Him being like a good, somewhat leader.
Lewin's always wrong.
Yeah, Lewin's wrong a lot. This actually might be a short split.
Lewin's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Lewin's working with fucking Littlefinger.
What?
I don't think so.
I don't know about that.
You said that. You said that last Bran chapter. I'm pretty sure.
Bro, the only thing I could think about.
We talked about this.
Hold
The
on.
Maesters don't like Targaryens and magic.
We talked about this when Kat got the letter.
That's a book ago.
Littlefinger doesn't like anybody.
Whatever.
He said last Bran chapter. That's like 2.5 years ago.
Whatever. Shut up.
But I know you're
feel
saying,
like we talked about it more recently.
That's the only time I could think of
shady.
maybe I would say that is when Lewin gets the thing from Lice, whatever that is, the secret eyeglass
language
or whatever.
letter.
Yeah.
So I feel like we talked about that recently because I wouldn't have just pulled that out of my asshole.
I don't know.
So
I feel like it's more likely that
man.
Littlefinger sent a rider with that group of people and just placed it on Lewin's desk or whatever. But I'm not sure. I think the Maesters are up to something, but Lewin seems like one of the most genuine of all the Maesters. What was your point?
Yeah, what's your hot take, Jeff?
What's your hot take?
it's
Glenn?
not a hot take. It's just we've talked about this before, and I've been fought against it, and I just need to get it out there because when Nelson was talking about her, all right, it reminded me of it. But I said before that Osha has a connection with the old gods, whether it's just being a wildling and just knowing the old gods a little bit better, or her actually being a part of the old gods. Because we've mentioned that you can't lie in front of the heart tree, and here is Osha.
She calls him out.
Bam.
Yeah.
Lie detecting.
Maybe you're onto something, Jeff. I never heard about this in any theories or anything. I mean, obviously, Osha follows the old gods and is probably more in tune with them than most people. I mean, even in Winterfell, you have people who follow the seven, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely weird. I thought it was very strange how the whole lie in front of a heart tree thing came up so quickly after that John chapter. It's only 2 or 3 chapters after. For us, it's like a month, but
I mean, I just got this from, if you remember the first time, was just from the wind in the trees, and she was like, he shouldn't be, he's going the wrong way. Like, I don't know. Osha seems pretty smart.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if, I think it comes with being a wildling. Like, you're more in tune with
maybe. And
gods.
That's what I think I was fighting with, or not fighting, or just arguing, like, they just know the religion better. You know, they can pick up on signs or whatever.
Does she have anything to do with like inducing these dreams or making them more frequent? Because she literally like asked Bran about it. He gets upset and immediately tries to go to sleep and immediately has not a wolf dream, but like the weirwood dream.
Yeah.
So like maybe if you go to sleep while thinking about having the dreams, you're more likely to have them type thing. So she's always trying to like plant that in his head.
Is there any chance Osha is actually working with the three-eyed ravens?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
What do we know about Osha towards the end of the books? Like, where
she does not want to go north. When Jojen and Bran are like, we have to go north to see the three-eyed raven, she's like, fuck you. There's not a fucking shot I'm going back north.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll take Rickon to Skagos, which is what happens. She ends up taking Rickon.
Yeah. And they get there?
We don't know. The last we know is she's in a
split the
Bran.
mill,
Yeah,
right?
she's in a Bran chapter where I think the Bran chapter where they're in that tower and Hodor's freaking out and he helps Jon Snow out with Summer, who's like below the tower. You know what I'm talking about? I think that's the last.
Is that actually in the books or is that just the show thing?
That's in the books.
Okay.
And I think right after that is when Osha leaves. Or maybe right before that. Around there is when Osha leaves. But yeah. Last thing I had, Horsebane.
He's the Bane of Horse.
He got sent to Old Town because his father thought he was just a bit of maester. And then I think he got kicked out of the Citadel because he gutted a whore who tried to rob him. But no one likes to talk about it because it was a male whore. So people keep it a little hush-hush.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
so people don't. I think people don't mention it. Horsebane might be a thing that they call him not to his face type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My one thing was where are the fucking reeds at, dude? I thought they
show up next chapter in the middle of the feast. So,
I know. Yeah, I know. I knew they showed up.
Why is Hallen being a little weirdo?
So I mean,
not saying
people
anything.
said George has said that like Hallen literally just doesn't show up in the books because if he did, there's no way to not have huge spoiler. Like you lose a lot of the mystery. So in the next Bran chapter, like they actually like now that everyone's arrived or sent a letter, they actually have the feast in the next Bran chapter, and they show up like in the middle of it. They're like, "Oh, sorry, we're late." This is, I'm pretty sure what I think what happens. So yeah, they'll be there next one. But he said that they heard from everybody except for Serwyn, who shows up, and then the Reeds who show up.
Mm-hmm. I don't have anything else.
Me either. No need to drag it on.
I think that's it for the sode. Guys, thank you for listening.
Check out the Discord.
Subscribe.
Don't worry about the Twitter. It doesn't exist anymore.
Don't worry about the Twitter.
Twitter's overrated.
We'll see you on the next sode for Tyrion 4, I think it is. The night is dark and very full of terrors.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.